All right, welcome back. We're going to have a look today at some creative mode stuff. One of the coolest things in creative mode is that it allows you to fly. And so as you can see, I'm up at the cloud height level. Clouds are actually moving, which I didn't realize until today. But this also allows you to get a perspective of the world that you are born into, because I did this as a regular creation, and so it's got there's mountains and lakes and rivers and um, all sorts of different livestock and forest areas. And so in order to go up, you hold spacebar. In order to go down, you hold shift. In order to first launch yourself off the ground, you have to double tap spacebar. So you can jump without getting liftoff. Um, and in our inventory, we have access to everything imaginable in the game. Some of the stuff you do have to cook in a furnace or a crafting table, but it also gives you access to all of the redstone stuff, all of the transportation different methods, as well as some different things where you can spawn different creatures and get different armor and music and whatever for different purposes. Today what I'm going to look at is one of the things I've been trying to figure out lately is how can I use this in a classroom. And so to start with, I built a couple of buildings and I'm going to show you how to introduce perimeter and how to introduce area. Now, being that a person's just introducing that, I didn't want to say perimeter and area, so it's how far around an object and how much space does an object take to fill. Now, these doors are a little bit fancy because I'm also messing around with redstone, so if you push the button, it opens both. And once you're inside, you can actually exit just by walking over the plates on the floor. So when you come in, obviously first things are some simpler things. So we've got a square. How far is it around? There's a few options. Kids can place items and then count the items around. Oh, go down there. And they would have to count the sign in that one. I'll maybe move that sign. They can place fences. They can walk around it. They can do whatever it takes. They can just count the blocks. The problem with counting the blocks is that they tend to want to include this corner one, and you actually don't want them to, right? So then it moves on to a rectangle, and then into a bigger rectangle, a bigger square, sorry, need to fix that, and then into a rectangle or line. On the far end here, I didn't label them. They're just shapes, but again, it's a matter of how far is it all the way around the object, and these are all fairly simple shapes. Then in the center of the floor, I set up what I'm calling a challenge. How many ways can the perimeter be found? Obviously, they can just walk and count, which is totally possible to do. They can split it up into different shapes and figure it out. They can put things on it in order to, like, going to fence off across here in order to be able to count something separate from the other stuff where I've already counted it. It gives them a lot of options there to fiddle around with it and work on figuring it out. That's just some ideas. None of it has to be done, but it's some ideas on how it could be set up. Oh, I just wrecked my button. I'm going to have to grab a button back and put that back on there, because that's not going to work without a button. I accidentally clicked the wrong mouse button. So in the area room, again, it starts out fairly simple. We've got a square, move to a rectangle, another rectangle, a rectangular line, and actually a bunch of these are the same. They're just different representations. Then we move on to a large square, an odd shape, and so again, this is one where you would want them to consider how they could chop it up into littler pieces, something that they could, you can count these three, you can knock off these two, you can slide this one down, whatever they choose to do, but there's definitely some options there to do some more exploration and cutting up of shapes. And then there's a challenge shape, of course, and it's again much more complicated and much more involved in what you need to piece out in order to count things. And what they could even do is, if they really wanted to, is they can bust it out, because it's easy to do in challenge or in creative mode, and then they can start to fill it back in, and they could just count them as they fill it in and change the color, right? So now they know that they dropped 7 squares there, so this area was 7, and then they can do the same for the next ones and the next ones. It's all just ideas on how it could work. None of it is anything that has to work. And that one over there is a redstone building. I'm just starting on it, but it's something that I will show in later videos. Anyways, thank you for watching, and hopefully it's at least sparked some ideas on how a person could use this to introduce in a math class.